inevitable that our body's shape and size will fluctuate over time, be that over the course of a day, a week, a month, or a number of years. As more sustainable sewists who want to get a lot of use from the items we make, we should be factoring in these body changes when planning our projects. So does that mean that everything we make should look like a potato sack? Pattern designer Sasha Starlight explains why the answer is no. In this episode, Sasha describes some of the different attributes a sewing project can have to be flux-friendly and talks us through some unexpected benefits of using adjustable, adaptable and flexibly sized sewing patterns. By the end of this episode, I'm sure you're going to be super inspired to get making with your future comfort in mind. So please stick around a few minutes. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 18 years. Yes, my blog just had its 18th birthday on the 11th of March. And I'm the creator and host of the popular Handmade Wardrobe Challenge, Me Made May. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate and ecological crises. And I'm looking at the way that my lifestyle contributes to them. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. And I really hope you'll join me in this journey. Hello, lovely listener. Thank you so much for popping me in your ears to accompany you as you go about your day. It is very much an honour. So have you had any sustainability wins lately? So here's an awesome one shared in the community chat spaces of the Check Your Thread Patreon by lovely patron Rinka. Rinka writes, I've got a little achievable win here. I tell online stores at checkout that I don't mind reused packaging. I ordered some yarn and received it in its original packaging from the wholesaler with a handwritten note saying thank you. Easy win, happy shop, happy me. This is such a great idea. Pretty much every online checkout has one of those add comments boxes that you can write in before submitting your order, and it would be so easy to add that little note each time. Obviously, not every business, and hopefully it's a small, independently owned business that we're buying from. Not every business will be able to accommodate that request, but they just might. So thank you, Rinka. My own sustainability win that I'm claiming this week is the sowing of seeds, the other kind of sowing that I'm into. A week or so ago, I sowed some kale seeds. I sowed 4 varieties, but only 2 have germinated, but that's fine. And yesterday, aka Mother's Day here in the UK, I was left alone to my whims in the afternoon, and I sowed seeds for 3 varieties of tomatoes. And I also sowed some basil seeds. Of course, the sustainability win being that at some point in the coming year, my family will, all being well, eating the homegrown produce, therefore avoiding the plastic packaging waste and associated negative effects of transporting food across the globe from the shop bought equivalent. If growing some of your own food is something that interests you, even if you only have the physical or brain space for a few pots of herbs on your windowsill, do check out my other podcast, Can I Dig It? Food Growing for Busy People. I am very much a noob, but I make that podcast with gardening legend Pippa, and every episode we pick her brains for info and tips. So do check out Can I Dig It wherever you're listening to this podcast. So let's get cracking with this episode. I'm so happy to be bringing you this conversation today because making clothes that can continue to be worn and feel comfortable when our bodies inevitably fluctuate in shape and size is such an important topic in terms of the sustainability of garment sewing. In this conversation, my guest, Sasha Starlight, explores the topic so thoroughly on our behalf and kindly offers up how we can sew with body fluctuations in mind in ways that are easy and fun. And you'll hear in this episode that Sasha mentions her latest flux-friendly sewing pattern, the Rhapsody dress. At time of recording, as you'll hear, I hadn't seen that pattern. But holy shizzle, the Rhapsody dress pattern is incredible. It is absolutely stunning, and I'm desperate to make it and feel like a goddess, which is how Sasha looks in the photos for that pattern. So as usual, show notes are available on checkyourthread.com, and that includes the links to everything mentioned in the episode, plus a couple of pics, including my version of the Palazzo Pants as promised. Most podcast apps that you might be listening to this podcast through might also show the show notes so you can find the links there, but they usually don't show pictures. So you'll have to go to checkyourthread.com website or the Check Your Thread Patreon if you want to see the show notes with pics for each and every episode. So until next week, when we've got a great community episode on the topic of saving and making money with sewing. By the way, that's going to be the last new episode for a couple of weeks because of the Easter break. So until then, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, take care of those in the wider global community who needs our help. Ask for reused packaging next time you place an order online like Rinka, and enjoy. Hello, Sasha. Thank you so much for not only giving me some of your time this morning, but also for contacting me in the first place. And it was very serendipitous because I had an episode in the works to cover this topic of adjustable and flux-friendly clothing anyway. And as part of the prep for that episode, I actually bought and made one of your flux-friendly sewing patterns, which I thought was pretty spooky. And actually, I had problems accessing my files through Etsy for some reason, and I contacted you, and your customer service was amazing. So,
oh, that's lovely to hear.
So thank you. So let's start in the time-honoured tradition. Can you tell us who you are, where you are, and what fills your days?
Yes, so I'm Sasha Starlight. I'm a sewing pattern designer and content creator. I originally trained in men's tailoring, and I then went on to work in women's couture as both a seamstress and a pattern cutter. After moving into teaching, sewing and pattern cutting, I then launched my own made-to-order fashion label before pivoting the brand about 3 years ago to share my designs as sewing patterns and video tutorials.
Amazing. So we'll get into that a little bit more deeply a bit later on. So where are you and what actually fills your days?
So I'm based in Hackney Wick in London in my own little sewing studio, and the work I create tends to focus on kind of elegant everyday pieces with striking silhouettes and flexible sizing that can adapt to the body changes of the wearer throughout the days or the year.
So what does your day look like? Presumably each day is a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously there's the designing of the sewing patterns, and I'm quite old school when it comes to that. So I like to still draft on paper rather than digitally, and then I scan that into the computer. So sometimes my work might look like digitizing those patterns. I also make sewing content, so I do a lot of video editing as well. And I guess the fun bits will be coming up with the designs and doing some drawing. So it can be really varied from day to day.
Sure. Okay, so let's start out by defining what we're actually talking about today. So I've been using the term flux-friendly sewing patterns.
I love that.
I stole that from Lisa Bauer. But I guess we've also back and forth been using the term adjustable or adaptable or flexibly sized. They all have ever so slightly different meanings, I guess, as well, or referring to different attributes. So can you help us unpack a little bit about what we're talking about and what terms you prefer before we crack on about why we might want to seek them out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the two main terms that I use for my patterns are adjustable, and that will be when a design has a feature where it can change in some way. So the Palazzo Pants that you made, they change at the back, so the sizing can literally adjust. So quite descriptive of what it does.
Yeah.
And then the other term that I tend to use is flexibly sized. And that's when the piece isn't adjustable, but it's designed in such a way that the shape is quite big or quite open, or it can cater to quite a few traditional sizes within one kind of catch-all size.
Right, fantastic. Thank you for that. Right, so as you know, we've made a couple of episodes on this topic previously, and actually having that definition would have been very helpful when I was making the previous ones. So thank you for clarifying. So let's talk about a bit more about the adjustable sewing patterns. So what are the benefits that we could be enjoying?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few. I think the big obvious one is that bodies change.
Yes, and we need to accept that and not beat ourselves up for that.
Absolutely. And I think also we often talk about that in terms of over a very long time frame. So we can expect, I think everyone can expect their bodies are going to change over the course of a decade. But I think what isn't mentioned so much is that often people's bodies can change over a much shorter time frame. So definitely me, for example, it can depend on the time of the month or kind of what I've eaten that day can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. I was thinking breakfast to lunch.
Yeah, exactly. And well, personally, I really value being comfortable in my clothes. And I think the clothes that I'm comfortable in are the clothes that I'll then reach for and wear time and time again.
That's such a good point. Yeah, because it's sometimes it's a subconscious thing, isn't it? Like where you're passing over that. Oh, it's the jeans. Oh, we're going over those to the ones that've got some stretch or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's, especially if you're thinking about sustainability, you're wanting to make pieces that you know you're going to wear, and if they're going to be comfortable, I think it's just you've got a higher chance of that happening.
Yeah. Have you, in your experience of kind of thinking and researching this topic, have you come across, I don't want to say kickback, that's not what I'm trying to say. I guess, so something that I referenced in the previous episode was when a friend of mine was almost kind of making herself wear jeans that felt a bit too tight. She'd put a bit of weight on and she kind of felt bad about that, but it was almost like she was almost punishing herself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's such a complicated thing, isn't it? Have you come across some sort of complicated feelings around body changes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard because as women, I think that's so conditioned into us
Yeah.
from when we're young. So it's really hard, I think, trying to like unprogram that. And it's really important to me that we do unprogram that.
Yeah, well, this is why I'm trying to make this episode as well.
Yeah. And I think something that I've actually found, since I now wear like my own designs a lot, and the clothes that I have that aren't my own designs tend to be quite flexibly sized anyway.
Right.
And I would say with that, I actually haven't noticed my body changing that much because I just haven't had to. Yeah, everything fits. And I think I'm maybe like a size bigger this year than I was last year. But I think because I'm not having to be confronted with those clothes not fitting, it's then kind of by default, it's kind of like taking away that little voice a little bit.
I love that you've given yourself that bit of brain space back.
Yes.
You know, that less, you just because I mean, so much of, yeah, what we, as you say, what we're conditioned to think about is like how we look and how we fit in things and the amount of brain space and yeah, mental energy that takes. I love that you've given yourself that back over the last year or so.
Yes, exactly. We're just not doing that. Yeah.
I want that for everybody. So you touched on a really important point there about longevity as well, because growing out of quote unquote, even as an adult, clothes does happen, doesn't it? And in fact, something I mentioned recently in an episode is that I actually lost some weight last year, not through choice, and a whole swathe of my wardrobe no longer fits very well.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it can go in different directions as well, of course, but yeah, just the
sure.
longevity is such a key thing, that if those garments had been made with adaptability in mind, yeah, I wouldn't have a big IKEA bag of clothes upstairs I need to figure out what to do with.
I mean, I had a similar thing. I also, a couple of years ago, lost quite a bit of weight, and I'd actually thrown out a lot of clothes that were smaller, being like, I'm never going to be that size again.
Right.
And then, but I think that's the thing, like, you just don't know. And if those clothes had been flexibly sized, then I guess they just would have still been in the wardrobe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, maybe your taste and style changes possibly, but I mean, you can't even really help that. But if there's something you can help, like that would be good to factor in. You're also touching on comfort there as well. So talk about that in regards to the adjustable sewing patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when they're adjustable, I think you still want there to be that factor of comfortability built into it. And I think sometimes we don't think about that so much with elastic, actually. So, although elastic clothing is adjustable to a degree, I think if you do go up a dress size or even two, then that elastic is going to have to be adjusted. It's not like infinitely stretchy and it will still be, it'll be like pinching too tight. So, that's why I tend to favour drawstring, although I do offer the option for both, but I do try and make it clear that the drawstring will give you a little bit more flexibility than just a plain elastic will. And one thing I do actually when I'm making drawstrings is I actually insert a little bit of elastic, just about 3 inches or so, and that will give it that tiny bit of give, but it means it's much more adjustable than if the whole of, say, the back waistband was elastic.
I love that. That's such a good idea to have that. Yeah, you've got the adjustability of the drawstring, but also that extra bit of comfort as well.
Yeah, and I also find sometimes with drawstrings you can't get them quite as tight as you would want, but like while it's still being comfortable. I think 'cause if you want it to sit kind of right on your waist, then you're kind of having to pull it in quite a lot, whereas the elastic just gives it that little bit of movement.
Yeah. And as you sit down and move around as well,
Exactly, yeah.
our weight and our body kind of redistributes as well, doesn't it? So I guess it allows for that as well. So something else that you were mentioning in our back and forth, which I thought was freaking genius, and I didn't mention it in my episodes because I wasn't thinking about that, is that one thing about adjustable sewing patterns is that you don't necessarily need to nail the fit the first time, which could be such a game changer for especially beginner sewers, I reckon. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think something that we often think when we're making our own clothes is that by default they'll fit better. But I think especially if you're approaching that as a beginner sewer, sewing patterns are still made around sizing, they're still graded. So there's no guarantee, even if you've made it, that it is going to fit you exactly. And as you get a bit more experience, I think you tend to know kind of where you need to leave a little bit more room for your own body shape.
Yeah, and it takes time, doesn't it, to learn about your body and the fit adjustments that you might need.
Yeah, and even just to see some of the shapes. Like I think as you sew, you kind of get used to the shapes of different garments. But as a beginner, there's no way to really know that. It's a case of trial and error. And I really like the idea that if the fit is adaptable, then I think you've got more chance of it giving a good fit to anyone that wants to make the pattern, even if they're right at the beginning of their sewing journey.
I love that so much because you do churn through those early projects, don't you, as you're learning and making mistakes. And I just feel like sometimes if there could just be a few more wins in there, a few more successes, it would be really good for morale.
And I think as well, then that having like that garment that fits and you love and you get to wear it and you get the compliments, I think those are the things that will keep you making, it will keep you sewing, because you kind of need to have that. It's like the fuel to keep you going for like the hard bits.
Totally. And also the sustainability of the fact that you use that energy, you use that fabric, you use those resources. And if there can be fewer ones that end up in the textile recycling bag, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's still like every time you make something, it's still using resources. And I think you want like as much chance as you can that this is actually going to be a wearable garment that's going to
Yeah.
be with your effort and with the resources.
Totally. So something else that you mentioned that I hadn't thought of as well is in terms of like getting more use and value for lesser worn / fancy garments and those that might be made from more expensive fabrics. So can you expand on that?
Yeah, so that was something I was thinking about actually. So I was listening to the previous episodes, which are really interesting. And something that I thought is, especially when we're talking about sustainability, I think often we kind of focus on the garments getting a lot of wear, and that's really important. But sometimes I think you do want to make those kind of occasion pieces and clothes that they'll be for like a special occasion, and we might want to use fabric that maybe it could be expensive, it might not actually be the most sustainable choice, but it could be something in our stash. And I think if we're making sure those garments are still going to get a lot of wear, even if that wear is spread out. So for an occasion piece, you're not going to be wearing it every day, you might wear it twice a year, but we might want to then wear it twice a year for the next 10 years.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And if we want to be able to do that, then I think then that's when that adaptable sizing becomes really important, and that time and that effort. And it means that that garment isn't just going to be sat on the rail as like a beautiful thing that you made. You wore it twice
You
that
wore to
year.
one wedding. Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you got any garments like that that are kind of in the fancier bracket that you've had for a long time and seen a fair bit of wear?
Yeah, so there's a few of the samples that I've made for my collections, and I like to wear all the pieces that I make, but some of them, because they are samples and because I do like to make content around them, I'm conscious that I can't wear them to death. So I do tend to save those for special occasions. So I'll still wear them, but it might be to say a wedding or, a different like big occasion like that.
So you've tested this theory.
Yes.
Another thing you said that I love so much that I didn't think about at all is that clothes that have adaptable sizing or are flexibly sized, you can share them more easily,
Yes.
be that as your own possession or when you're finished with it.
Yeah, so I think that's something that's really cute. That it's kind of like an added bonus. So me and my mum are quite similar sizes, but that is something so we can share clothes between us.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and then also with my samples, because I do have some of those more special fancy pieces, but I've had quite a few friends borrow those for events that they were going to, and it means
Oh,
that I've always got something on the rail.
you've got something to loan out.
Exactly, there's always something that will fit.
So they're like, right, I've got a wedding. Looking through your rail.
Yes, it's like come see, come choose.
I love it. But you're and the same as you were saying, like when you're finished with that garment, you think that's no longer my style, or that I've realised that those colours don't suit me after all, or something like that, and you want to pass it on. You know, having a garment that isn't one size super strict, you're more likely to get it into the hands of somebody that's then going to be able to wear it and enjoy it, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it could even work. I mean, I've never actually done this yet, but it's something that I like the idea of is when you pass garments down through generations as well. And I think if the garment actually gets to survive that long and that you can pass it down, like I have items of my mum's that she wore in the 70s and I love wearing those pieces. So I think it just gives like more possibilities for that to work.
Oh, I love that. And also making for others, if you don't have their exact sizes, that's a really good idea. Do you make for others? Oh, you do, obviously, as your job.
I do for my job, but I do for friends and family occasionally as well.
So they're like, oh, I'm a size 14. Make me a thing.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, unless you can physically take the measurements from that person, if someone isn't used to making themselves, they often don't really know how to take their measurements properly. So you can kind of guide them through, but I
A
think,
lot don't even seem to have a tape measure, I've noticed as well.
yeah, or they've got maybe like it's like the long straight one that you use for
Yeah.
DIY. It's like that's not going to work.
No, babe, that's not the one.
Yeah. So you can get them to like measure, I guess, like flat garments that they've owned, but it definitely gives a bit of wiggle room and takes away some of those kind of like surprise factors.
And also, you were talking about how some adaptable clothing can often offer different styling as well as sizing adjustability. Is that something that you plan into your collection as well?
Yeah, so that's something I've been working on with some of my newer patterns. So the Rhapsody dress, that was the last pattern I released, and that one does have adjustable sizing. So it's kind of a big open shape, and the tie at the waist draws it into the shape of the wearer. But the tie at the waist on that one can also change the style. So
Oh,
it kind of has holes at either side, and there's different ways that you can draw it in. So you can either have it with like a long flowy back, you can have it fitted the whole way around. And the other thing that I was really proud of is that it has detachable sleeves. So that's
what?
something I hadn't actually seen in a garment before. I'm sure that there might be other ones, but
You're like, mic drop, I'm done. I'm done for the day. I just created that.
so my idea with that one was the Rhapsody dress, it is quite an occasion piece. And kind of what I thought with that is, say if you're wearing that dress to every wedding that you had that summer, but you might not want it to look exactly the same for each one.
Yeah. Oh, the weather's different.
All the weather's different, yeah, absolutely. And I kind of wanted you to be able to kind of change some different elements. So you could tie it in a different way, you could add different sleeves. So it's the same dress, but it actually looks quite different for each one.
Okay, this is amazing. I love this. So we'll get into a bit more into your specific patterns shortly. But so aside from specific patterns designed to be adjusted, so what other garment styles do you recommend that we look out for if fluctuation in body shape and size is something that we want to be mindful of in our sewing?
Sure. So I'd say one of the big things is there's obviously those big open shapes. I think if you don't want it to look too kind of potato sacky, because I think sometimes that can be a look that you want. Like I love a big
Yeah,
oversized
sure.
jumper.
I've got the big old cardigan here. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love a slouchy fit, but sometimes that might not be what you're going for.
Sure.
And I think if you're kind of looking at like kind of big, bold, striking silhouettes that are kind of like they're playing with the silhouette of the body, so rather than sitting close to it, those can be really great styles to go for. And then a few technical things. So I think if you're looking at tops, what you want to see is where it's fitted on the body. So you want styles that maybe aren't too close under the armpit. So you're looking at kind of batwing styles. And if it's not a full batwing, maybe it has a drop sleeve or slightly larger sleeves. And then with trousers, I guess the obvious one is you don't want anything that's too tight. That would by default kind of be a kind of closer fit. But the other thing to kind of pay attention to is where the crotch sits. So if the crotch is quite fitted, that again won't be so adaptable over time. So you're looking for things that have a drop crotch. So that's when the crotch sits a little bit lower, and you tend to find that on kind of looser trouser styles. But that's something that will allow it to change across quite a few sizes over time.
You're making me think of the Burnside bibs pattern by Sew House 7. Do you know that one?
Yes, I do, yeah.
I was thinking about that when you were just talking about adaptable styling as well, because it's got the straps that you can wear in different configurations as well.
Yes. Exactly. So anything like that has kind of like different style options that can fit.
Yeah, and it's got a very deep crotch.
Yes, and I think people, when they haven't worn the drop crotch before, that is something that I do with the Palazzo Pants pattern. Sometimes I have people got in touch being like, oh, it's not sitting right. So those original kind of Palazzo Pants from the 40s, they always had that kind of drop crotch like that. And I think it can take a little bit of getting used to, but they are so comfortable when you get the hang of it.
Well, let's talk about your patterns then. So, as we were saying, I've made your Palazzo Pants pattern and I really like them. I haven't worn them very much because I made them towards the end of summer and it's definitely summery fabric. So I'm waiting
what
for it
did
to
you
heat
use?
up again. I used this gorgeous it's a viscose. The colour is in between like jade and emerald kind of colour.
Gorgeous.
But it's... Yeah, it's one of my favourite colours, and I had my colours done kind of recently, roughly, and that is basically most of my wardrobe. No, that actually doesn't look good at me, but that colour does. I can wear
dual tones. Yeah.
Dual tones, yes. And so yeah, I always gravitate towards that colour, and I got the fabric in a fabric swap, so it's of unknown provenance and unknown
well done.
fibre content. I'm pretty sure it's a viscose though. I could do a burn test, but it's got the slink and it creases. Yeah. But I'm very excited to wear them again in the summer.
Oh, nice.
And in fact, I haven't shared them yet, so I think I'll probably share them when this episode goes out as well at the same time.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and I'll put a picture of them in the show notes. So can you give us a rundown of the patterns that you have created and how they work in terms of being adjustable and flexibly sliced? Like you've already kind of touched on one of your dresses, but let's get into them all, and so we can learn about what features are available out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's start with the Palazzo Pants, seeing as we've already...
Perfect. Yeah, so as we've mentioned, the Palazzo Pants, so that one's actually my most popular sewing pattern.
I'm not surprised. It's a very classic design as well, isn't it? Like I think a lot of people they've had something similar in their wardrobe before, so making that kind of style again, it's not a big leap, is it, stylistically for people?
Yeah, and I think what's been really popular about that one is that they're adjustable at the back waist, but they're also quite a smart style. So I think there's quite a lot of casual trousers that have some kind of degree of adjustability. But the way I designed them, they've got quite a smart tailored front. So until you turn around, you don't necessarily notice it has that kind of adjustability. Sorry, it's like
Is everyone okay? Is everyone okay?
So until you turn to the back, you can't necessarily tell they've got that kind of adjustability factor to them.
And I don't think you would even necessarily know. You would just think, oh, that's a gathered back. That's a kind of flat front, and there's a gathered back. I think you'd have to be quite on it in terms of garment construction to think, oh, hang on, wait, that's adjusting. Maybe that's adaptable.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it gives you. There's quite a few different ways that you could wear that one. I think it works quite well for kind of a work garment, or I've actually even had people make that for their own wedding suits, which is really lovely to see. Then next up, I've got the side-tie dungarees that I'm actually wearing today.
I was wondering if they were your dungarees pattern. They look amazing.
Thank you. So yeah, that's one of my favourite studio outfits.
Love a dunga.
Oh, me too. I'm a huge dungas fan. And I actually designed these ones because I love dungarees, but I think sometimes they can look a little bit giant toddler. And I kind of wanted to...
It's true! Oh no, it's so true though. We don't want to admit it, but it's true.
Yeah, and again, I think sometimes that's totally fine, but I wanted to challenge myself to design a pair of dungarees that were a little bit smarter, or that you could wear in a smarter occasion. So these ones are adjustable at the waist. They've got a little tie at either side. Some sewists have tried out making them with elastic, but I haven't got that as an official hack at the moment. And they also have optional ties that you can put on at the ankle. And that's really good for if you're cycling, so I'm a keen cyclist, or just for kind of like moving about if you don't want to get really muddy bottoms to the trousers. It kind of...
Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking allotment wear.
Absolutely. I think because the wide legs, like I love a wide leg, I think it's really glamorous.
Same.
But I have 2 chihuahuas and I'm out walking them all the time, and sometimes it's just not the most practical. So a little bit of a drawstring at the ankle kind of solves that problem.
I'm thinking, yeah, when I'm crouching down doing my weeding, often mud gets caught in the turn-ups.
Yeah.
You just blow my mind. Okay, cool. Carry on.
Great. Then next I've got my Rhapsody dress, which was the last pattern I released. And that one is size adjustable at the waist.
I haven't seen that one yet. I'm very excited to check that one out. That sounds amazing.
Oh, I'll send you a little video of it. But yeah, so that one adjusts at the waist too, and also the tie can be used to let you wear it in different styles. So you can have the back loose and flowy, you can have it fitted the whole way around. And as we discussed earlier, it has detachable sleeves, so you can switch that up for different occasions. And something that I thought would be really good with that in sustainability terms was that you can update the piece later on with new sleeves. So I thought rather than sewing a whole new piece, you could maybe make like an organza sleeve or like a feature sleeve and maybe a kind of vintage textile. And then it just gives the whole dress a total refresh, but without having to make the whole thing. Then I've got a few pieces that aren't adjustable, but they have flexible sizing. So we've got the cocoon jacket. And that one I designed to be worn with the Palazzo Pants all by itself, but it works with the Palazzo Pants as a kind of full suit look. And it's based on the cocoon jackets from the kind of 1920s. And it has a kind of really big open shape, big batwing sleeves, has a tailor's collar that gives it a little bit of a sharper look, but it's a very soft piece. It's kind of designed to work with drapey fabrics. I've then got a batwing blouse, and that one is actually my free sewing pattern.
We love a free sewing pattern.
So that one is a big open shape. It's super beginner friendly. It's just 2 lines of stitching down the side and 1 piece of fabric. So it comes together really quickly. If you're a more experienced sewist, you can put it together in an hour.
Amazing.
And then I've got my blanket coat. So that one is designed to be made with reclaimed textiles, and it's also a minimal waste design. It's not fully zero waste, but it uses as much of the original blanket as possible, and it turns it into, again, it's a big open shape. It sits open at the front. A lot of it works with kind of the drape and the warmth of the original blanket, and that one's super beginner friendly as well.
You're ticking all our boxes right now. What? Reclaimed textiles? What? Minimal waste? Tell us more.
Oh, glad to hear. And then finally, I have my swing coat pattern, and that is my pattern that's aimed more at intermediate sewists. And that one isn't adjustable, but is flexibly sized, and it's a big striking silhouette. So that's when I was talking earlier about those kind of like big shapes. It has really big balloon sleeves. The main body of it is based on a circle, and so it has that swing shape that kind of works to kind of, it swings around the body rather than fitting close to it.
Oh, awesome. So you were mentioning there, you've kind of now and again mentioned different kind of silhouettes, different kind of eras. So where do you get your ideas and inspiration for the sewing patterns that you create?
So I think all my designs have started at a point where I wanted a garment, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, fun. Okay.
So the Palazzo pants, so I actually wasn't a big trouser wearer myself. Like I always found them a little bit uncomfortable. And because I trained in tailoring, I was kind of looking to bring that in, so create something that looked tailored, but was kind of as comfortable as wearing a dress or some jogging bottoms.
Oh, that's the dream.
Yeah. And I find I really like the challenge of putting those constraints on the design process. So I find it helps to, I'm someone that's always coming up with a zillion ideas. So I quite like to give myself quite strict parameters to then be, okay, it's got to look tailored. It's got to be adjustable. It's got to kind of work with as few pattern pieces as possible. So I like having those things in place.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I agree. I think something that I really like about, when you do put parameters for example, like you're doing a no-buy challenge, or you're trying to use these scraps or your leftover piece of fabric from a previous project, like as soon as you put some kind of restriction on yourself, restriction sounds the wrong word because it sounds very negative, but you put a parameter like that, I think is when your resourcefulness and your creativity can really sing, can't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, exactly. I think it can often be the opposite of what you think. So the restriction can actually be quite freeing in itself. And like you said, I think that's the thing, is like once you have that there, it can really just help your creativity flow.
Yeah, maybe instead of the word restricting, like focus, possibly.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I think a
Okay,
laser
we'll go with that.
focus gives you a laser focus.
I want this, go. Okay.
Yeah. And then I grew up watching a lot of vintage films. I used to really love like dancing films like Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. And I think you can see quite a lot of that influence come through my designs as well. So they quite often work on those kind of vintage shapes. So the Palazzo Pants are from the 40s, the cocoon jacket is like 1920s. And I love kind of playing with those vintage ideas, but updating it for modern day life.
Amazing. And I think that your name, Sasha Starlight, really kind of reflects that as well.
Yeah, so the name's actually got a bit of a weird backstory.
Oh, tell us. We love a weird backstory.
Yeah, so it isn't actually my surname, but I used to live
No,
on
I assumed, but yes.
yeah. I used to live on a canal boat in East London, and the boat was actually called Starlight. When you live on a boat, when you are buying coal or these different things from the like different people that work on the waterways, you tend to just use your name and the name of your boat. So I'd be like, it's Sasha Starlight, and my own surname is actually used by a famous actor, so it's quite hard to Google. So when I was kind of thinking of a name for the brand, I think I was ordering coal and I was like, Sasha Starlight. Actually, I was like, that works. Let's stick with that.
Absolutely does. So how did you get into, I'd love to hear more about your background, because like I doubt when you were doing your GCSEs you were like, I want to design flux-friendly sewing patterns when I'm grown up. Maybe you did, I don't know.
Well, I actually initially studied fine art in Glasgow. So I specialised in painting. And that does come out a little bit now. So I do still design my own prints sometimes. And I normally work for my own paintings for that. And although I sewed when I was a teenager, I actually had quite a few years when I didn't really sew much at all. And after I finished studying painting, I actually set up a gallery, ran that for a few years. And I had a bit of just to kind of change of heart, I kind of wasn't enjoying what I was doing so much. And on a little bit of a whim, I was watching a programme on bespoke tailoring. And I was like, I'm going to move to London and study that. So I kind of looked into it, and within the course of a week had arranged that. Moved down to London.
Oh my goodness. Are you a very kind of gut-led person?
I think so.
Or it
yes.
just felt right and you were like, we're doing it?
Yeah, I think I was just watching the programme. I think I'd always been interested in fashion, and what interested me about that is it was more the craft side of it. So I was really interested in learning, I guess, the basics, or like a kind of real understanding of how clothes go together. So I trained in bespoke tailoring, and I worked in that for a couple of years doing men's jacket making, which I loved, and it did teach me a lot. But I love colour and I love kind of variance in what I wear.
And there's not so much in men's
Not
tailoring.
so much, yeah. Men tend to be very safe when they're buying bespoke suits. I'd say it's always grey or navy.
Well, it's a big investment as well, isn't it?
Exactly, and I guess you want it to last as well for as long as it can. But I got a little bit bored of the you would get like a suit.
The charcoal or the navy or the
Yes, I think sometimes you get like a baby blue suit come through, and then that would just make the whole project more exciting. You're like, oh, I get to use blue thread today. Then after I left tailoring, I then went to work in a small women's couture house, and I started off there as a seamstress, and that again was like really great for learning. So I did the majority of my learning kind of on the job, and there were some really amazing older seamstresses there that kind of taught me all the traditional hand sewing skills, like how to do invisible lace joins and beadwork, which are things I don't use so much now, but I'm really glad that I do know them. And I actually then ended up working as the pattern cutter at that company. Again, that was a little bit serendipitous. So the pattern cutter that we had actually called in sick and they couldn't come in for the whole week. I ended up stepping in, and after being thrown into it, I realised I could actually do quite a lot of that from having done quite a lot of sewing. I've always been quite mathsy and I just really loved it. And I kind of realised then that that was what I really loved. So I like the sewing, but definitely it's the pattern cutting and kind of that kind of problem solving and maths kind of element is what really excites me. So while I was working in the kind of women's couture, it was around that time actually that I started designing my own pieces. And I used to run a label that was called Fishwife. And I ran that with a friend of mine.
Oh my God, tell me about Fishwife.
So I'm actually from Newcastle, although my accent is diluted quite a lot now. But yeah, fishwife is like a traditional northeast term.
What does it reference? Like, what associations does Fishwife have?
So I think what we liked is, although it's kind of used as a term for kind of like a bullshit, outspoken woman, but I guess we liked the kind of positive connotations of that. So I think rather than a derogatory term,
Yeah.
we thought it's good to be outspoken and to kind of like wear the things you want and have these kind of bold designs. So that was kind of where we were going with the name.
I love it. What kind of designs are you creating for Fishwife?
So with those ones, a lot of our designs were based on historical clothing actually. So we had a lot of historical influences. We had a coat that was based on a piece that was called a péton lair.
Oh, what's that?
So it had, I guess it was like a garment that you wore kind of over the top of a dress. So kind of like fitted kind of style. So those pieces, it was all quite complicated construction for those. So it had a lot of traditional kind of tailoring built into it. So a lot of kind of pad stitching, a lot of kind of underwiring and we ran that label for a couple of years. So after Fishwife.
So where were you selling Fishwife?
That one we did present at London Fashion Week, and
Ooh.
those were all kind of expensive couture garments. I would say kind of while I was doing that, there were some certain things about the fashion industry that I realised that I didn't like so much or that didn't really align with my values. So I think one thing that I was quite frustrated by was when you're making garments yourself, when you're making made to order, they have to be quite expensive just to cover the cost it takes into, I mean, and sewists will know, so it's like how long it takes to make the garment and the materials that can be involved.
And all your overheads.
Exactly. So the garments had to be quite prohibitively expensive, and that means that you're only really catering to a very rich audience. And, those clients were lovely, but I just really wanted to create something that was more accessible for more people.
Mm.
So after I closed Fishwife, I then set up my own label by myself, so under Sasha Starlight. And with that, so I had actually a lot of the pieces that now have become sewing patterns I originally designed for that label.
Oh, cool. So it was originally a ready-to-wear range.
Exactly, yeah. And that's also where some of those adjustable sizings came in, because I wanted to create pieces that would be able to be worn by lots of different people without having to have a huge amount of sizing. And again, when you're buying online, sizing can be, it's so different depending on where you buy it. Like a size doesn't necessarily mean that much.
So were those one-offs? Was that like small runs? What kind of?
So that was made to order as well, but the price point was a little bit more accessible. And that was working with my own fabric prints as well. So I worked with a lot of placement prints with those. I think there's some of the pieces that you might see on my Instagram with the kind of big rainbow print. That's a piece that I originally designed for the label. And so I did that for quite a few years. And then it was about 3 years ago that I had a big pivot with the business. I decided, I think, again, I was having a little bit of block with what I was doing, and I think it wasn't still feeling quite aligned. And I was kind of looking to different things that I could do that would still be kind of designing and pattern cutting based, but maybe not necessarily made to order, because it's very hard to run those kind of small businesses. And I kind of looked around me and I saw there was actually some other women that I saw creating sewing patterns online. And it's something that I just hadn't considered before.
Interesting. Because I was wondering if it was going to be a bit like Birgitta Helmerson, the zero waste sewing pattern designer, who started releasing, when we went into lockdown, started releasing some of their patterns as sewing patterns because the kind of ready to wear and a kind of small run side of their business that was on pause. But this sounds like this wasn't that for you.
So it wasn't quite then, but I think it was the makers that were doing that around that time that influenced me.
Right. So what were the other designers that you saw, like pattern designers you saw that were like, oh, actually, maybe I could do this?
So there's a American designer called Kiana Bonolo. I think she was one of the first people I saw, and then This Is Catchy was another designer. And I kind of looked around, and I think it's something I just hadn't even considered. I didn't even realize it was a thing, to be honest.
So you weren't really kind of hugely tapped into like the home sewing kind of Instagram kind
Not
of
at all.
world.
So while I was running Sasha Starlight as the made to order label, I actually also started teaching sewing. So I did work teaching beginner sewers in a little London school called Sew It With Love, and I did that for about 5 years. So I was in touch with kind of beginner sewists in that sense. And I also did some teaching of pattern cutting at Goldsmiths Uni as well. So I think when I saw that it was people sharing sewing patterns and also there was that tutorial element, it just felt like a really good fit because I felt like, oh, I know how to teach people and I love making patterns. So it felt like a way that I could really bring those things together in a way that was even more accessible to everyone. So I think it's like you can see a design and then you could be making it that weekend. And a really lovely bonus is, although I loved seeing people in the designs I made that they were wearing, I love it when people send me pictures of my designs that they've made themselves. I think you can always just see the pride come through in the picture, and it's just such a beautiful interaction.
It must be so lovely as well seeing their fabric choices and their styling and the way that their personality has played a part in creating that garment. It's almost like a collaboration as in a sense as well, isn't it? I guess that you designed the basic shapes, but they've then taken it off in their own way.
Absolutely. And sometimes I love it, especially when I get someone sends a photo through and they've created the garment in a way that I just wouldn't have imagined.
Cool. Can you give me some examples of ones you've seen that are like that?
Oh, I guess one example, there was a sewist and she'd created the dungarees, but it was all in two tones. So it had
Ooh.
one leg in one colour, the other leg in a different colour, and then those tones were also brought out in the pockets. So the
Oh,
whole thing, it was kind of
fun.
like a two-tone Battenberg, but it was so cute, so cute. And then also the cocoon jacket is one that people seem to have really run with. I think because it's such a simple shape, a lot of people have added, like really interesting trims at the edge. I think with that one, people have really gone for the drama, which I love because that was kind of like what I had in mind when I designed it. But I think people have really taken that and rolled with it.
And I love the what you were saying about the kind of the accessibility of having gone from making kind of very expensive, no doubt, bespoke suits, some high end kind of more couture pieces, right? You've now got something that's so accessible that sewing patterns they still cost money, and you've got the outlay of fabric and stuff, but you can access that, and you've even got a free pattern, so that is really accessible for somebody that as long as they've got a computer, printer, and internet access.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're talking about, getting new patterns, but are there any alterations you could suggest that we could make to like existing sewing patterns that we might already own to make them more flux friendly?
Yeah, so when I'm designing adjustable sewing patterns, where I normally add that extra fabric is either at the back and the sides. So I think often you want to kind of keep the front looking quite sleek, quite smooth, or that can kind of give quite a smart look. But you can add a little bit extra at the sides and elasticate it in, or you can add into seam allowances, and then that allows you to adjust the pattern later on. But I think you can even expand the pattern pieces quite easily. So probably the easiest way for a home sewer to do that would be maybe perhaps the side pieces. You could cut them at the sides to two sizes up from the rest of the pattern and then elasticate that in. And with trousers, it's a little bit more difficult to do that with the back if it hasn't been designed that way. But certainly with skirts, you can definitely add a little bit extra in at the back, and the same with dresses, and kind of elasticate or drawstring it in there.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about trousers that have got darts in the back. You could possibly ignore the darts, kind of then smooth off the top back and then put elastic in that, or like D-rings and or something like
Yeah,
that. So maybe like the proportions are the same, but you've just got a little bit more wiggle room with maybe the belly.
yeah, that's a really good idea. And you can also get, I'm not actually sure the name of them, but you can get the special pins. So it's basically like a hook and eye, but like a giant hook and eye, and each side has a pin on it. So they're really good for if you do make it a little bit bigger, and you can adjust it in, and they come in some really cute designs. So you could have like a diamante or a cute little
I
button.
think Instagram was trying to serve me those recently, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Go away.
But they are quite handy, I think, for those like waistbands, because it kind of makes a feature of it.
I think it was showing that the model had like the jeans were way too big, and I was like, that's not me. Next.
Yeah.
Not my problem. Have you got any new styles in the works? Like, can you let us know about that? Or are there any styles that you dream of adding to your range that you haven't quite yet?
Yeah, so at the moment, I am working on a skirt version of the Palazzo Pants.
Oh,
so
fun.
Originally, I started designing it as quite a straight translation of the Palazzo Pants into a skirt style. But as I was designing it, kind of has evolved a little bit. So it's actually more of a pleated skirt style now. And it takes some inspiration from a really cute vintage skirt that I own as well. So it's got these kind of really big, the pockets are even bigger than the Palazzo Pants for this one. But it's still got that adjustable back. So it can be either with elastic or with the drawstring. And the other thing I'm working on is actually a hack for the Palazzo Pants. So they are adjustable at the ankle. So I've really been enjoying the kind of barrel leg and bubble leg trousers, but I was trying to think of a way that I could adapt that pattern and also adapt maybe some of my other trousers so that they can be worn as either wide leg or gathered in at the ankle, kind of depending on the mood. That hack, that will actually work with any wide leg trouser, so not just the palazzos.
Oh, that's such a good idea because we have been like, how like is this trend going to look a bit dated soon? You know, I've been mulling that over, and I don't generally care, but I know that some people probably do. Like they might want to embrace, you know, a certain trend, but then they're a bit aware that that might look a bit dated in a couple of years. So with this kind of thing, you could play with that and then, you know, and then undo it.
Yeah, and then also you can also use like trousers you've made already. So rather than making a whole new pair of trousers, you can just see, okay, I'm sure most people have got a wide leg trouser with a deep hem in their wardrobe that they've made. And this hack should hopefully work with that. So you can have it adjustable for the period of time that it's in trend or you're in the mood for it. And then it can be wide legged again after that.
So where can we see your content, your hacks, find your patterns, follow you? Where?
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and my handle there is Sasha__Starlight. And you can find my longer tutorials on YouTube, and I'm Sasha Starlight there as well.
Amazing. And where can we find your patterns?
And my patterns are all available on Etsy at the moment, and I also have a website that will tell you a little bit more about those, and that is sashastarlight.com.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm going to immediately go and look at your new dress.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Sasha.
Oh, thank you, Zoe. It was lovely.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!